Welcome back, everybody, to Pivot Point of View. I'm Destri along with Becky Pearson. And man, we've just had a great month of podcasts. If you haven't been tuning in, go back and look at our playlist. Man, we had Dr. Goodman talking about hip labrums, management, surgery, all the things to expect with that. And then we had Cameron Schoenberg last week with his bits and his story. That was incredible. You do not want to miss it. He's a really fun guy. So, right now, we are going to talk about off-season conditioning. And so, it's getting colder up there in the northern states, and some of us are looking to turn our horses out for the winter time. And then the rest of us, maybe you live in the southern states and the rodeo season's really slowed down and you're looking to focus on your young horses and really just reevaluate the next year. There's a lot of components to off-season conditioning, whether it be mentally, physically, or spiritually. And so we're going to talk about those things today. So, on the front side of things, one of the big parts of off season going into it for me is, reflecting on the year that I had and trying to figure out what went well, what didn't go well, and what changes I need to make. So, Becky, what type of goal setting systems and things like that do you like to use going into a new year and reevaluating the past year?
Yeah, I love to use a system that I was taught back in my PT business mentorship days. With I was involved with a group called Lighthouse Leaders, and it was a bunch of PT private practice owners, and we sat down and as a group we did it silently, but we took like 2 hours and just sat down and really thought about, where do I want to be a year from now? Everybody thinks about 5-year goals, 3-year goals, that kind of stuff, which is great, and you need that. But I think when you really start breaking it down a little bit closer, then it's a little easier to attain. And so you and I, Destry, we just did this before we did the call, and it's always been very powerful for me. So really thinking about, what is that 1 year vision? What do you want to accomplish a year from today? And we not only take into account, like, what is our income or our business going to be like, but what is our day-to-day schedule like? What is my personal life like? And what is, if you could accomplish anything in a year, like, what is that? And so for those of us that are in business, I think it's pretty, it's very good to have like financial goals in business, maybe a sales goal or a number of clients business. But if you're thinking about this as a competition related goals, like, maybe you want to make your circuit finals next year. Maybe you want to make, the amateur finals in your state. Maybe you want to make it to the NFR. And so, like, really sitting down and thinking about those goals and how you're going to get there. So it's very, I mean, it's amazing to have a dream, but like many people have said, a dream without a plan is just a wish. And if we don't really plan, then we're not going to really accomplish what we're trying to shoot for. So I like to sit down first, do that 1 year vision. And then I like to break it down then into 90-day sprints, we call it. And so the 90-day sprint starts off in 90 days, what do I need to accomplish, or what milestones do I need to hit to get me closer to that 1 year vision? And so, whether that's certain events that you want to attend, maybe it's a certain dollar amount you want to win by a certain date. Maybe it's qualifying for certain rodeos. Maybe it is, for us, it's okay, we got to set a marketing calendar. We've got to set an event calendar. We've got to do these things in order for us to hit these goals in our business. And so it helps break that 1 year vision down into a little bit smaller piece. And then we keep drilling that down. And so then we got to think about what is our 30-day objective. Okay, so we got 90 days, 30 days. But as we keep drilling this down, the first thing that comes to mind oftentimes is our obstacles. Like, yeah, well, I'd like to have 10 people sign up for a plan, but I'm not going anywhere. Or, but I don't get much traction on my social media posts. So the first thing that we think of in human nature when we set a goal is like thinking about the obstacles that are going to keep us from that goal. So we also do want to write down our biggest challenges or obstacles, because if we write that down, it can help us to overcome those obstacles. And then the last part of that is the 7 days. What are you going to do? What 3 things can you do in this next week to move you closer to your 30-day goal and your 90-day goal? So all of those goal setting tools actually have on the website. So, and I can link to those documents in the show notes for this.
Absolutely. And so, like, when you go to think about what's my 1 year goal, and I mean, maybe you want to call it realistic versus unrealistic. Even if you feel like it's unrealistic, when you do this process and you break it down in that way, you start to realize, oh, maybe I can do this. Maybe this is possible. And so just having a process to be able to work through all of that, I feel like is very helpful because again, you look at this big daunting goal and the how and the why and the what doesn't always pop up in your mind. Then you start to break it down and you're like, okay, this isn't as unrealistic as I thought. So I just think it's really cool to break it down like you did.
So this was your first time doing it, right? You and I walked through this over Zoom before we did the call. What were your thoughts, as we started and then as we worked through it, as far as like with that 1 year vision? What were your thoughts on the 1 year vision and the just kind of getting that down on paper?
Well, I think anytime that you start something, you got to have something to shoot at, and you got to set a target for yourself. And if you know what you're shooting at, then it's a straighter line to get there. And so being able to put up that big goal at the end of the rainbow and know what I'm shooting at was super helpful. It was like, all right, boom. Now I got something to shoot at. Okay. And then we break it down further. All right. How am I going to get there? Because there it was. I just like you said, there it was, the negativity of like, ooh, but I have a full-time job, or I have these colts I need to get rode, and all the little things that come into life. But you're like, but wait a second, I could take this part of this day and work on this, and then I could take this part of this day and work on this, and then it starts to fall into place a little bit, and then you're like, all right, now I'm kind of looking forward to this. I would love, and then that gives you something to look forward to in your day and your week, and as long as you have something to shoot at, it just puts it in a lot better perspective, and it helps you hold yourself accountable to those things.
Absolutely. And I think, the other thing that we came across as we were doing this is our time. Like everybody talks about, I don't have time. I don't have time to exercise. I don't have time to devote to this side hustle. I don't have time to do this or that. And so I think the second part of that bigger 1 year vision that my day-to-day schedule will be, you have to figure out where are you going to find the time to accomplish these goals. Like you have to put it as a priority, because if this goal is important to you, you've got to figure out how you're going to get it done. And so literally I wrote down 5 a.m., 5:15 a.m. I am waking up and I am getting my butt to the gym. And that's from 5:15 to 6:30-ish. That's my dedicated workout time. And then, from 6:30 to 7, I'm coming home and I'm doing my chores, So like you really got to get very specific on that, like trying to hold your feet to the fire and keep yourself accountable, because that's otherwise your day gets hijacked. Whether it's that you are setting aside time to work out, or you're setting aside time to work on a new business, or working on riding young horses, because again, young horses take a back burner oftentimes. There's how many times do we see horses for sale on Facebook? Like, I don't have time for this horse, So like if it is a priority to you and you want it to be a priority, then you have to make it a priority for sure.
Exactly. And having an executive schedule with that. I mean, even as far as like scheduling in time for yourself or your family and things like that, and helping you to be more present in those things is something that everyone talks about when you're trying to manage your time and do all these things, because essentially at the end of the rainbow, it whatever you're doing is to be able to like create your own freedom in some sort of way. These things that, like you and I looked at is be able to create freedom down the road to do just what we're doing now and do it full time. And so, being able to remind myself why I started and everything else like that was also great to put it all back in perspective.
Yeah, because as we dug a little deeper, I don't know if you want me to share, but really, I mean, your ultimate goal is to have a facility that has a covered arena that you can work on people, you can ride and train nice horses, and have everything right there for you to do. And so when we started talking about it, the 1 year vision that didn't come out, but as we dug through layers and layers, like ultimately, that's your dream, is to be able to have a facility where you and your wife can be there doing what you love to do day in, day out, and be kind of the go-to place for people to come to train, rope, ride, and get themselves dialed in. And I think that is so cool. And that's the fun part about these activities. When you do your 1 year vision, it kind of helps you uncover your why. Like, why do I get up in the morning? Why am I pushing so hard every day, day in, day out? What is that why?
And since 2020, that's been the goal. I mean, COVID made me put a whole other different perspective on things, on like what is truly important to me, and why am I here, and why am I doing the things that I'm doing right now, and is that what I'm supposed to be doing, and what is possible. And so I started thinking about all these things, and year after year, day after day, the thing that resonates in my mind is Horse People Recovery Center, place to train that is, you can get out of the weather, a covered arena where you have no excuses but to train every day, rope at the same place that I work, all of those things. It doesn't mean that I don't enjoy what I do now, but to have the freedom to be able to really focus in on doing that and doing what I feel like is my calling. Yes, that is the ultimate goal. And the underlying thing is to help people reach their goals too.
Yeah. And that's everybody has to find their passion, and I really feel fortunate in that we have. I really feel like we have found our passion. And so, um, you have to have your passion to get you out of bed. We talked about this with Drew and Christy, like, Drew and Christy Gaffney's podcast, go back and listen to it. Drew's a hoot. But the one thing that he talked about is he was passionate about his black baldy cows. And, whether you're passionate about your cows or your barrel horses or your team roping, like, find your passion and figure out how you can continually keep your passion fueled. And so keep it in perspective, don't let it get out of control, but you have to have a passion. You have to have a reason to get yourself out of bed in the morning, to get yourself doing the workouts that aren't fun always, or that aren't convenient. You have to have a reason and a why to make yourself keep going. And, as I have patients in their 90s that are amazing. They're still going out and taking care of their cows because they are living that passion. It's pretty cool to see people like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So on the next part, you get your goals set, you do your 90-day deal, 30-day weekly deal. And so there's a lot of things that you can work on in the off season, and that can go into that, as far as you can use it for, maybe you had an injury, or maybe your horse had an injury. And so some of the things that you're going to incorporate into your off season planning is, how do I prevent getting injured again? How do I prevent getting my horse injured again? And working that into your routine. Or maybe it's a deal where, hey, I need to be stronger coming into the next year. And so the off season is a great time to build strength and recondition yourself and recover from a long season. And so that way you don't wear yourself out in the next season, and you go into the next season as strong as you can be, so you hold up throughout the entire season, and can transition into that in-season training. But it's a good time to, improve what kind of shape you're in, improve your strength, work on your injury prevention, and for you and your horse. And then, you go back and look at skill wise, what were some of my weak points in the arena, and what do I need to do to fix those? And maybe you just need to put more work in. Like, this is how I need to structure my practice. This is how many times a week I need to practice this certain thing, so that it doesn't hold me up from winning checks this next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And you know what, as you were talking about that, I was thinking about, as we do this with people and with horses, the same kind of deal, the goal setting and then breaking it down. Like, if you think about a person, like, when you and I work with somebody, our bigger 1-year vision for them is to get to be the ultimate competitor, basically, that they get back to being successful in the arena. And success for each person might look a little differently. Maybe they can only go compete one time a month, or maybe they're the 1D rider that is heading to the circuit finals. Everybody is a little bit different, but that's their goal. And so as we look at them, we develop the problems. We look at the problems, so the biggest challenges and obstacles that they have, and then we come up with solutions for that. So, like, they're lacking range of motion, they're lacking strength, and then we come up with a plan, our 7-day plan. We come up with a program for them. So same thing goes with your horses. If you step back and you really look at that horse, okay, this horse didn't compete at the level that I felt like they should have. So what is this big 1-year vision realistically for this horse? That they're a rock star, but maybe there was something with that horse that wasn't right. Maybe our shoeing isn't right. Maybe they're having some ulcers. Maybe they're having, some hock and back pain. And so we got to figure out those challenges and those processes to get this horse better, like, and just maybe you just list like back pain in your horse, SI pain, or ulcers, or maybe we don't know, but we just know that they're not right and they're crabby. And so, first thing on the list is let's take a trip to the vet and let's get a plan, in place. And then maybe you're getting x-rays so that your shoer knows how to shoe this horse better. And then you're working with an equine nutritionist. We had a podcast with Dr. Jimmy Nichols and getting the nutrition lined up. So you can do this with your horse, with yourself, with your business, like this goal setting process. I've done it. I've had 3 different plans, for one for my PT business, one for my pivot point business, and one for my competitive schedule. And so I post them on my wall so that I can look up from my desk. Oh yeah, this week I've got to work on that. When you get sidetracked here, you get, but you got to stay the course, and post these goals where you can find them. Look at them daily or at least weekly. Maybe you put them up in your bathroom while you're, by the mirror getting ready in the morning. So.
And Becky, you make a good point about relying on your network to help you identify the things that you need to work on, whether it be getting an evaluation from us and seeing maybe where the weak points are in your body that could make a difference and shave that needed time off to get you to the top, or get you, in a different D or whatever it may be. Looking at that, or decrease your pain, help your horse more, all of those things. And then taking your horse to the vet or the osteopath or the horse chiro or the horse PT or whoever it is that you have work on your horse, and having them go over their body and make sure that they're at a baseline before you start reconditioning them for the next season. I mean, that's super, super important to have that network to be able to identify those problems and then create a plan from there on how you're going to address them.
Absolutely. And that's, having that knowledgeable professional to help you through that. Because I know it is so devastating. Like when you have a horse that is not up to par and you don't know what is going on with them, you've got to put your trust in the best vet that if it is, especially if it's your number one horse, like take them to the best vet that to get a plan. Same kind of deal, as we were talking about, like a good vet will come up with a plan, like especially a very complicated horse. Okay, we've got to work. This is our biggest problem, maybe it's let's just take my horse Big. This year, I mean, he and I, midsummer, we figured out things were not where they needed to be. I spent all spring chasing kids to different things, and took him to Paul Fornstrom, who I think I highly respect his opinion on horses. We had some shoeing issues, some front foot issues. We got good x-rays of him, found that he was starting to have some degeneration of his navicular bones. So we come up with a plan for the shoeing. We got good x-rays so my farrier could see that. We got him on some Osphos. We also had some wasn't saddle fit issues. It was actually rigging. So my rigging was too far back and it was pulling my saddle forward, into his shoulder blades. We also had EPM. So we had a very big list of things to start working through. And then my plan, so I started working through the physical issues. I also felt like he had way better turns to the right than he did to the left. So I switched him to the left. And we are now putting some runs together that I feel the most confident on him that I have felt probably the entire time I've owned him. And so it's a process, and you got to work the work the program, work the process. And I worked on myself. I dang sure got to work in the gym and here at home, on my physical being, so that I could ride him the way he needed to be rode.
We got to do the best we can for these horses, whether that's playing to their strengths and changing our game plan a little bit,
Mhm.
or working on our own conditioning. And then I think just having a fresh set of eyes on anything. I mean, even skill wise, maybe you need to go to a clinic, whether it's a horsemanship clinic, a barrel clinic, a team roping clinic, and find somebody that, lines up with your style or how you like to do things, or even going to somebody that's maybe not your style and learning a new perspective and taking something away from that. Maybe you're somebody who doesn't reach, but you go to a team roping school that person reaches more or something, or maybe how one gal runs her barrel horses is a little bit different than what you usually do, but maybe you can find something in that will help one of your other horses run as well. And so, like, I know when I was in high school, I would always go to a calf roping clinic before, at the very start of the season. I would go to Paul Tierney's calf roping clinic, or um, I went to Ray Brown's once. I went to Todd Graff's once. They're just some different perspectives. All of them had something that they did that I could take away from that and use and build myself as a calf roper. And so having those different perspectives, I feel like, was very helpful, whether it's for my horse or for my flanking or for my tying or anything like that. They all had a different way of doing stuff, and you take a little bit from each one and make it your own, and then all of a sudden you're your best, and you don't have just like one way that maybe doesn't even work for you.
Mhm. Yeah. So this is a great time, as we have ended, a lot of associations have had their finals for the year. Even if you're down south, there's been a lot of year end kind of things, and this is a great time to sit back and, like Destry said, reflect on the past year, and then decide, what are you going to do next year to get better. And even if you're at the top, like, it takes a lot to stay at the top. So you've got to keep grinding and keep pushing. And how do you continue to strive to get better? Because if you're just striving to stay the same, you're not gonna get better. You're gonna slide backwards. So you gotta keep trying to get better, even if you're at the top, for sure.
Yeah, was it Dale Brisby said, if you're not training, you're untraining.
For sure. For sure.
Thank you all for listening, and let us know if you're trying to get your off season conditioning program in order. We'd love to help you with that, for you or your horse, or even just to talk about setting goals and getting you ready for the next year. We'd love to help you with that as well. So thank you again for listening, and let your health be the pivot point to your success.